Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a Monday night edition of SEC Talk. As we're kicking things off a little bit earlier here at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern Time. Hope everyone enjoyed their weekend. We continue another week here of SEC football. This is the not really the finale, but this is pretty much the finale for some teams in SEC play before they get into their annual rivalry week game. So, how was your weekend, Wade? And are you excited about what is about to be the end of the regular season?
Yeah, I did a great weekend. It was cool to see LSU clinch the SEC West. Personally, um, I wasn't at the game or anything, but just surreal that they ended up winning the SEC West. Of course, we know Georgia is going to be on the East, but yeah, it's crazy that we're in the final 2 weeks. This is kind of cupcake week, if you will, but still a few good matchups. And then, of course, looking ahead to the conference championship games, most of those are already set. So lots to look forward to.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that. Can't wait until we can talk about conference championship week. I know that you didn't, but we had Neil come on the Sports Scramble show, and he did. He showed us a picture of the seats. It was frozen solid. There was some snow, ice pellets still left. So it was definitely a chilly. It's been a chilly week as the South is dealing with a cold front. It's raining over here as well as we have another cold front. Coming through. So we're definitely getting some of the chill here in the month of November here down the south. So let's get into our SEC teams in the AP Top 25 poll. Usually we go on Tuesday night, so we have to just stick with the AP poll for this week. But hopefully next week we'll be back with the college football playoff rankings. We'll definitely talk more about what's to come on that and tomorrow night show. And then number one is Georgia. They remain on the top spot after that big win on the road in Stark Vegas against Mississippi State. Tennessee remains at number five after they absolutely blew the doors off of Missouri, put up 66 points. LSU moves up a spot after Oregon, the Ducks, lost to Washington. A lot of things happened in the Pac 12. UCLA lost to Arizona, Oregon lost to Washington. So the Pac 12 really got flipped upside down. Number eight, Alabama, they moved up a spot after beating Ole Miss, and then Ole Miss drops from the top 10 all the way into the number 14 spot, and then Kentucky falls out of the poll. Vanderbilt, who broke the 26-game losing streak in the SEC, got to give credit to the Commodores. We'll talk about that game once we get there. But five teams in the AP Top 25 poll in the SEC. I would definitely have to agree that these are going to be the five teams that we'll see on tomorrow night's ranking as well. So we'll now hop in to our reminder segment. If you have any questions pertaining to SEC football or football around the conference, feel free to leave us a comments, and we will definitely get to that throughout the duration of the show. So let's hop into some SEC fantasy here as we have our sponsors back. We're on a new network. So our SEC Fantasy once again is presented by Buffalo Bayou Brewing Company. If you ever found yourself down there in H-Town, where that's been bumping ever since the Houston Astros won the World Series, that city has been lit on fire. I saw Jeremy Pena today work at Raising Cane's.
Yeah.
He was working the drive-through this morning, so that's definitely a good thing. That I definitely like whenever the players do that. It's definitely a good thing for the community. So if you have any time to head down to Houston, they have all the beers, have all the beers, and they have the views as well. Chet was showcasing one of their beers last night. He was drinking one while he was doing the show, as he always does. So you can head on over to that website, bufferbrew.com, and learn about all the great views and brews that they have at Buffalo Bayou. So with
I
that,
like it.
we
Views
had
and brews. That works well.
yeah, absolutely. So with that, we go into our SEC fantasy rules. So you get a quarterback, a running back, a receiver, a defense, and then we cannot pick the same player back-to-back weeks. I know that you're excited for the bowl season. That's whenever it gets real exciting. That's whenever you go to two of each position. So I cannot wait until that happens. But for now, we'll run with the basics as we will hop into Week 11 recap of SEC fantasy. And let's start with your team before we talk about what happened to my team this week.
Yeah, so a solid week here for me. 82 total yards. Stetson Bennett aired it out for 289 yards. that seems to be his number. He's always in that like 270 to 290 range. Occasionally he eclipses 300, but good stuff from him. Tank Bigsby had a great matchup this week against Texas A&M, and he took advantage of it, going for 121 yards. He was kind of a guy I was worried might not, you know, perform or be there as this Auburn team kind of dwindles towards the finish under an interim coach. But when you're coached by Cadillac Williams, that gives you some energy, especially for Tank Bigsby. So they did use him as a workhorse, and it worked. They won by 3. Ja'Cory Brooks for Alabama. He had a couple nice plays, finished with 61 yards. Alabama still doesn't have that true downfield deep threat. And while they were able to win this Saturday, that just seems to be one of the biggest differences I've seen out of the Tide all year. We've just become so accustomed to them having a burner on the outside, if not 2 or 3. So Ja'Cory Brooks is kind of that guy, but he just got 61 yards. And then the Tennessee defense, they did a great job against Missouri. Missouri, tacked on. Well, actually, Missouri scored pretty early in this one.
Yeah, it was
And
close.
then garbage time, yardage, got it up to 389. When your offense scores 66 points, you're going to get tired on defense. So can't fold them too much. But kudos to Missouri for hanging in there punch for punch early. But I finished with a positive 82 yards. I'll take it late in the season. And let's take a look at your squad.
Yes, the Thunder rolls outside. My team, half of my team, decided not to roll this week in Week 11. As you can see on the screen, this was an ineligible score, so I just decided. I mean, it was just too much chaos. So Wade ultimately gets the win in Week 11. I don't think I would have won anyways because you look at my quarterback right there, 86 yards. It was a very cold day for Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's a native of Southern California, so I'm not sure if he's really played in any weather, and the flu was going around the team. So who knows if Daniels, was one of those players that got diagnosed with that. But as you can see, Devin A-Chain did not play. And then Tillman as well missed another game as well in Georgia defense, 308 yards. So I didn't really want to do the math. I mean, you can't really do the math
I'm not going to give you a
anyways.
negative 200.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been like negative 200. So I'll just take the pass on this, give Wade the victory here in Week 11. So with that, Wade had the number 1 overall pick going into week number 12. So let's dive right into that. We'll go with the QBs, and you're rolling a new face here in week number 12. I like this pick.
Yeah, Cupcake Week means we get some favorable matchups for guys that we maybe haven't featured on the show yet this year. So Brady Cook is one of those guys. He's had a good year for Missouri. Filled in nicely for Connor Bazelak, in my opinion. He doesn't have to do too much usually. He usually throws for about 220 to 250 yards, but he's playing New Mexico State, and Missouri is a 28-point favorite. So that shows you a lot. I mean, if Missouri is going to win this game by 28 points, they're going to have to air it out and use Brady Cook. So I'm going to bank on that. And then you got the old faithful Heisman candidate, Hendon Hooker. So this could turn south for me if Cook doesn't hold up his end.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I know that it's Cupcake Week, but I really wanted to just pick the players that are in conference play. I'm going to go with Tennessee's and Hendon Hooker. I think that he's coming off of a really good game against Missouri, 355 yards passing, and Chet puts it both. Puts it best right here. Dang, Tyler, talk about a good time to get Hooker. And yeah, I got to get him before the season ends because who knows where Tennessee's going to go? Are they going to go to the playoffs? Is it going to be a New Year's Six bowl game? But got to go with Hendon Hooker. I know I kind of wanted to get a new face in here, but you just can't really go away. I thought about going with Will Rogers, but I didn't want to disrespect our ETSU fans that we have in the comments section.
That'd have
So
been too easy. Come on
I'll,
now.
I'll stay away with that. I'll go with Hendon Hooker as well. We have another comment from my mom. So proud of those LSU Tigers. Yes, we will definitely get to that of how they clinched the SEC West. So with that, let's go on to the running backs. Let's see if we have any more new faces. I'm sure we will. But for now, Montrell Johnson, I picked him a couple of weeks ago, but he hasn't seen the field of SEC fantasy since.
Yeah, he is having a good year for Florida. He came over with Billy Napier from University of Louisiana Lafayette. good move for him to get into the SEC, and he's proven that he can play at this level. I mean, he went over 100 yards this weekend against South Carolina, and he has a pretty similar matchup against Vanderbilt this week, if not easier. So I look for him to go over 100 again. I took him number 1 overall, and he's a guy that you can watch in the bowl season as well, because we see these guys who kind of catch heat late often have a really good bowl season.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Raheem Sanders a redo. Last time I picked him, only 60 yards rushing, and I think this week he bounces back. Had an okay game. LSU's rush defense really stifled Sanders. Arkansas really wasn't able to move the ball effectively. But they're going up against Ole Miss. In the past two running backs that they faced, McClellan from Alabama almost ran for 100 yards. Josh Williams had a good game for LSU. So I trust Sanders against this Ole Miss rush defense. Has been a little too inconsistent for me. So Sanders and Johnson are the two running backs. So now let's go on to the two pass catchers, and these are some new faces. We have Evan Stewart from Texas A&M, and Ladd McConkey, who I'm really surprised we have not seen, but we get the star Georgia receiver.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey is a guy that I almost have picked a few weeks in a row, so I'm glad to see you're giving him a shot. I'm going to go with Evan Stewart. He is a freshman, 5-star recruit, one of those prized Aggie recruits. And he's starting to turn it up as of late. He went over 100 yards again this weekend, and I think he has over 50 yards in every game this season. So it's a little surprising that we haven't heard more of him, especially given that Texas A&M doesn't really throw the ball that much. So for him to have that consistency is really good. So they're playing a 1-9 UMass team. So while I agree that we should try to not pick on these cupcake matchups, I think him being a true freshman and a bad pass offense kind of evens the playing field in a way.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you any crap for that, but I'm going to go with Ladd McConkey. He can do it all. He can run the ball. We've seen him go off for a 70-yard touchdown this week against Mississippi State. And then I know that Brock Bowers gets all the hype, but Ladd McConkey has been the go-to guy for Stetson Bennett in this offense. So going up against a Kentucky defense that really struggled in the past couple of weeks, has lost their identity. I feel confident going McConkey here. And hopefully I can use them in the bowl season when Georgia heads on to the playoffs. So now let's go on to the defenses here. You're all with the Tiger defense. I'm pretty sure that none of us have even picked LSU's defense this year, but it's well-deserved group.
Yeah, I can't remember if we had or not. I feel like we might have for the Southern game or something, but it's been a long time coming, if not. And LSU's a tricky defense. I mean, we hear all about Harold Perkins and BJ Ojulari. They make big plays. They get tackles for loss, sacks, but they do let up a lot of yardage, and that's kind of what we're judged on here on SEC Fantasy. So makes it tricky, but I do think that they should be able to limit UAB. And I think that LSU should impress here. I look for them to hold UAB to under 350 total yards, if not, maybe even under 300.
Yeah, as you hinted, UMass is a 1-9 football team. They're not very good, and that's why I'm going to go with Texas A&M. I used Georgia last week. I wish I would have waited. I would have rather used them this week against Kentucky. But I'm going to pick on the group of five for just one of these segments, and that's going to be the defense. I picked the SEC versus SEC, but for the defenses, this is where I got to pick up some free yardage. Just go with one of the best defenses in the SEC. I know that they've been a little consistent down the stretch, but going up only against a one-win team, one of the worst teams in all of FBS, I'm going to roll with the Aggies.
Yeah,
so now
that's pretty sure bet.
Yeah. So now let's move on to more of our recaps. We'll dive into recapping Week 11 here in the Southeastern Conference, and let's start with the 11 a.m. game. Excuse me. We're going to go on to Fayetteville, Arkansas, for the Battle of the Golden Boot, and this was ultimately a trap game for LSU, but in the end, they passed that test. Arkansas not only was down to their second string, at one point they put in their third quarterback. So it was definitely, it doesn't matter if LSU is undefeated. Number one, Arkansas is going to play them close. It's always been that way. As you can see down there on the bottom of your screen, we usually do our player of the game for an offensive player of the game. But Harold Perkins, I mean, the game that he had, he pretty much put LSU on his back, 9 total tackles, 6 of them being solo, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. You can also add on fumble force, whatever you want to call it. He was an absolute menace, and he's been a menace for this LSU defense. I mean, all the hype, is around BJ Ojolari, but Harold Perkins is only a freshman, people. So he's got 2 more years with this defense, and I think by the time he leaves, he's going to be a first-round pick, a top 10 pick for sure. So, but LSU on the offensive side, not much going for Jaden Daniels after the fumble. Really, nothing for him after that, but they really relied on Josh Williams in that running game. But as always, I mean, Arkansas, even on the road, at home, this series is always close, always a 4-quarter battle. I know it was ugly, but LSU still came away with the victory.
Yeah, they got the win, and that's what the job was on Saturday. So, I would have liked to see LSU show a little bit more dominance, and a lot of people are, doubting LSU still, saying it's an off year for Alabama, and that if LSU wins the SEC, they shouldn't make the playoff with 2 losses. We'll cross that bridge when we get there against Georgia, but they didn't show me anything on Saturday that says they can even hang with Georgia, except for Harold Perkins. I mean, he can do a lot of damage, and maybe he can get the Stetson, but you're going to have to score some points, and I would have liked to see LSU play like a definitive top 10 team. I mean, I don't care that it was ice. I don't care that you're going on the road against a rival team. I mean, if you're a top 10 team playing an Arkansas team that just lost to Liberty, at the very least, LSU should have been able to put 25 points forward and won this game by 2 touchdowns. And
Yeah.
they just never got any momentum offensively, and that's okay. They got the win. One of their worst efforts of the year on offense. Still got the win. The defense came in clutch. So LSU's really got to make a statement over the next 2 weeks for me to have any faith in that title game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen it. Like the elements have affected these top 10 teams. Last week, we saw Michigan struggle on the road against Rutgers, and they ultimately blowed them out. And then we saw Ohio State, really squeak out a 21-7 win on the road at Northwestern. There's high wins there. LSU, the last 11 o'clock game, I'm sure all Tiger fans know what happened there. They got blown out by Tennessee 40-13. I know that was at home. But like always, this is a rivalry game. I wouldn't really put too much into this. We'll see, how the offense responds against UAB. I mean, UAB is no slouch either. I know they're 5-5, but they're one of the best teams in the Conference USA. I think Vegas also has something on that. Vegas, had this one at 3 points, and people are like, this is free money. And then look what happens. LSU only wins by 3. So maybe Vegas knows something about
kick.
Yeah, maybe Vegas knows something more than we do, but we will see. But good win nonetheless for the Tigers of LSU. So now let's move on to the next morning game that we had. And this was a close game, like Wade mentioned. This was 28-24 at one point, and then Tennessee puts up 66. I mean, it was just a tale of 2 halves here. I mean, Missouri played a really good game in the first half. Their defense, let up some scores, but their offense was able to score as well. But in the second half, like Brady Cook and that offense just couldn't get anything going. Hendon Hooker was playing like himself. And guess who also had a good game as well? Jalen Hyatt. Isn't that a shocker? But good win for Tennessee. I think that this is like what they need. I mean, I know that they're not for sure for the playoffs. Maybe another TCU loss would definitely get them in. Obviously, know that the Ohio State Michigan winner or loser will probably get out. But if you can beat a team like this, I mean, this is making a statement to that playoff committee of like, we should be in as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee has to pull out all the stops if they're going to make the playoff, because they no longer control their own destiny, and they probably need some help. But best thing they can do is just look absolutely dominant. So no hard feelings here when you're running up the score against Missouri. Missouri gets that, and hitting Jalen Hyatt, or they hit someone for like a 70-yard touchdown, like with a minute left. But if this game was 59-24, A, it's a smaller margin of victory, and B, like when a team gets into 60s in college football, especially in SEC play, I mean, it just grabs your attention. So Tennessee's got to do all they can to pass the eye test and get into the playoff.
Yeah, if you're a Tennessee fan, I bet they are wanting Georgia to just beat LSU. That way, they don't have to deal with the resume versus resume. And there is still a head-to-head. We'll get into that once we get to the hot. Let's get into the next game here on the SEC slate. Shift to the afternoon game, and what a story this is for the Vanderbilt Commodores. 26 games it was in the SEC that they lost, and now they finally break the curse. Vanderbilt 24, number 24 Kentucky 21, and Ray Davis once again the running back for Vanderbilt. He had a spotlight for a couple times here in SEC fantasy. 26 carries, 129 yards, and a touchdown. I know that the spotlight is on Ray Davis in that running game, but how about Vanderbilt's defense really shutting down Chris Rodriguez Jr. in that running game? I mean, I know that Kentucky found the end zone 3 times, but Will Levis, the quarterback for Kentucky, did not look great at all. 100 yards and 1 interception, but still, Mel Kiper and all these boyos who are NFL draft experts are having him as a first round draft grade. Do you agree with that? And then go on the storyline of this Vanderbilt team.
First, I'll give Vanderbilt their kudos. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a really complete effort. The effort that we wanted to see Vanderbilt have after they had a great non-conference slate. So not only their first SEC win, but a top 25 win at that. So kudos to Vanderbilt. Probably not going to a bowl game because they would have to
They have Tennessee at
beat
the end of the
Tennessee.
year.
So this was their bowl game, and good job to Vanderbilt. But to your question about Will Levis, I mean, no, there's no way that he can be a top 10 pick. If you're an NFL team that needs a franchise quarterback, why would you watch this film and then voluntarily say, hey, this guy's better than the guy I have? I mean, like, I don't know of a quarterback situation where I would say, yeah, I'd rather roll with this guy. I mean, I get that the physical attributes are there, but he wasn't even the best quarterback on the field in this matchup, and neither quarterback in this matchup threw for more than 200 yards. So I just, if you can't physically dominate Vanderbilt, and I don't care if it's an offensive line issue or a run game issue, if you can't take over, to me, you're not a top 10 talent. And I know there's guys that come out of bad collegiate situations and went off of raw talent eventually. But I just can't see the value there as a top 10 pick. I mean, maybe like late first round or second round, but that'd be a head scratcher to me.
Yeah, I saw a mock draft today. They had Will Levis going to number 7 to the Seattle Seahawks. You think that they would rather have Will Levis than Geno Smith the way that Geno Smith has been playing? No. And the really problem that I have, they're saying, like all these GMs are saying that Will Levis is a better quarterback than CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. That is just something I can't wrap my head around. I mean, but probably CJ Stroud, if he plays good in the Michigan game, he'll probably win the Heisman. And then Bryce Young won the Heisman last year. So that'd be 2 Heisman Trophy winners that you're saying are worse quarterbacks than Will Levis. Yeah, I don't think so. Someone else needs to be, either a draft analyst or something, because that is definitely off. Hopefully, NFL team. Will Levis, I'm sure is a good dude, but as a football player, right now he is not a first round talent right now. But going on to that, we can get into some more NFL draft talk once we get closer. We always do our mock drafts once we get closer. So our game of the week here in the SEC, this did have some high stakes depending on the LSU result, but in the end it didn't matter. Alabama did have to win for LSU to clinch the SEC West, but Alabama didn't lose a second straight game. And it would have been crazy in Tuscaloosa to think that they would lose 3 games before the Iron Bowl. But in the end, they ended up pulling out a 30-24 win on the road in Oxford. And Ole Miss, went out to a hot start. They were up 17-7. It was really giving you the feel of that LSU Ole Miss game. Ole Miss got out to another hot start, and then Alabama was able to get it close in the first half. And it was just a back and forth battle. In the second half, it was really the battle of the running backs. And for Alabama's side, we didn't even see Jahmyr Gibbs on the field. It was all McClellan. And then for Ole Miss, Quinshon Judkins had a good game, 200 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. This was just a really good game, back and forth. And it came down to, the kicker, Will Reichard, nailing 2 field goals at the end to put the Tide up 6. But yeah, this was definitely the game of the week here in the SEC.
Yeah, it was back and forth, and Ole Miss gave it everything they had. It was a little weird to see Jahmyr Gibbs on the sideline. I think the sideline reporter said he was healthy and ready to go, but I think that maybe that meant he was healthy and able to play. But McClellan did a good job filling in. Not nearly as dynamic, but capable. And yeah, Alabama just had just enough in this one. To me, it looked like they tightened up some things on the penalties, which is something that has hurt them all season long. Although they did get away with a few late hits. There's a viral video going around of Jackson Dart getting, pushed in the helmet late and some stuff like that. And then they had a pretty atrocious face mask. So
Yeah.
still a lot to clean up for Alabama if they ever want to get to their full potential. But at this point, they are what they are. I mean, they're probably going to finish 10-2 and have an outside chance at playing in the Fiesta Bowl or something. But Ole Miss, heartbreaking defeat here. But you kind of knew Alabama wasn't going to go 0-3 on these crucial road games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't ever happen that after Alabama loses that they lose again. And once again, Nick Saban proved that, yeah, I mean, look at their two remaining teams, Austin P, Auburn, both winnable games, and it's at home. So if they win both of those, Alabama's for sure going to be in the New Year's Six. I would probably slide them in either to the Cotton Bowl, maybe face off against whatever the Group of Five teams, or maybe they face off against Clemson. We get another, Alabama Clemson, but in the Orange Bowl. Wouldn't that be something? So I would have to bet that matchup would happen if it were to be on the table. So from the SEC West, so we'll go into a SEC East battle down there in Gainesville, and not so great for the South Carolina Gamecocks. They did not show up in this one at all. Once again, offensive struggles and defensive struggles. They could not stop Montrell Johnson, your guy, 24 carries, 161 yards on the ground, and a touchdown. Anthony Richardson didn't do too much through the air. He did have a touchdown. But once again, Anthony Richardson beat you through his legs. But got to give credit to Florida's defense. I know it hasn't been pretty the whole season, but they stepped up against Spencer Rattler and crew. But yeah, a lot of question marks to be answered in Columbia, South Carolina. It was looking like, they were ranked at one point. It was a 1 week stint. Then they lose to Kentucky. Now that you lose to Florida. So a lot of question marks to be answered as South Carolina doesn't get any easier as, you have your annual trip to Clemson to end the season.
Yeah, this South Carolina team is very puzzling to me. I mean, I can understand losing to Florida on the road, but to be in the top 25 and then to fall out and just really struggle in this ball game and to never be in it. I mean, pretty embarrassing for South Carolina. Spencer Rattler, it looks like Lincoln Riley was right. I mean, a lot of people, including myself, thought that he maybe got the rug pulled out from underneath them a little early, and that he was a really talented player. I think he is a talented player, but I don't think he has a 300-yard game to his name this year. And that's the kind of player South Carolina needed at quarterback, because I don't know if South Carolina's had a 300-yard passer in 2 to 3 years. So they really needed him to come in and make big plays, and he just hasn't delivered. But you got Tennessee and Clemson coming up, so it's not really time to open up the quarterback competition. They just kind of are what they are at this point. You hope for a big time upset and get to a bowl game. But for South Carolina, if they were able to clean things up and knock off Florida and Missouri, or one of the two, I mean, it made a big difference in their bowl positioning.
Yeah, absolutely. They might be going out west to the Las Vegas Bowl or playing in the Independence Bowl, against some Conference USA team. So we will see where South Carolina ends up going, but I don't know if they're going to pick up any more wins, especially with two top 10 teams of Tennessee coming to town this week, and then you have Clemson on the road in def. So that is the two hardest games left in anyone in the country. So we'll see if the Gamecocks can surprise. But yeah, this was an embarrassing loss on the road. So now we go on to the next game, and this featured the number one team in the land, the Georgia Bulldogs. The Battle of the Bulldogs. We haven't seen this matchup since 2017. And it pretty much went the same way it did in 2017, a Georgia blowout. I mean, there was moments in this game that was close. I mean, Mississippi State did give them a scare for about, like 5 minutes of the game, but in the end, it was all Georgia Bulldogs. As you can see there, Ladd McConkey, I talked about it. He had one carry, 70 yards and a touchdown. That's what he can do to you as well. Stetson Bennett as well has a good game. And this Georgia defense just continues to impress me week by week. I mean, I know that Mississippi State, had success at times to hold an air raid attack under really ground. That was a really good job by Kirby Smart and their defense. So Georgia's just looking unstoppable at this rate. I mean, they're just cruising along. I mean, they'll have let's see, they have Georgia will face Kentucky, and then they get Georgia. So I think it's pretty safe to say that this team is going to be undefeated going into Atlanta.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this matchup and the Kentucky matchup. I mean, I thought that would be a really tough 2-game slate for Georgia. But unfortunately, they just have really taken off, and I think they'll steamroll both teams. So much for good football, but it's good for the SEC. Georgia looks like they're on a path to the playoff. We now know that they'll be playing LSU for the SEC championship. So good stuff to come for the Bulldogs, and no problem on the road here.
Yeah, no problem at all. So now we get into our finale here in week number 11. It was Texas A&M going on the road to Jordan-Hare Stadium to face Auburn, and this was a defensive battle between the two teams. No Devon Achane, that was pretty much all their offensive hope. I mean, Connor Weigman got the start this week. Didn't have a good game, and he had a touchdown, 123 yards passing, but Tank Bigsby was the player of the game for the Auburn Tigers, 121 yards on the ground. And he also was the leading receiver. That's right, the leading receiver. 20 yards was about it for the Auburn receivers. So you can tell how Robbie Ashford didn't do too good. But, yeah, this was just a very sloppy game. But, two of the worst teams in the SEC West. Texas A&M with this loss, surprisingly, they were a preseason top 10. And now they find themselves not even going to a bowl. Meanwhile, teams like Kansas and UConn have better records than them. So what a time we live in, but what a good win for Cadillac Williams in this Auburn program. They can definitely build upon this win into the future if he will be the next head coach.
Yeah, I mean, tough times for Texas A&M. Auburn showing some fight and some life. Cadillac Williams seems to have the guys motivated for the rest of the season. But yeah, tough times for Jimbo Fisher and A&M. And honestly, they better hope they beat UMass, because then they got LSU coming to town.
Yeah.
And for Auburn, well, they got Alabama left to play. So probably the highlight of their season right here was beating Texas A&M. Robbie Ashford, he just doesn't seem like the answer to me. But meanwhile, TJ Finley's not even on the roster anymore. So you know what that means.
And what happened to Zach Calzada? Isn't he out for the season for an injury?
Yeah, so he didn't even suit up. So you kind of thought this would be the storyline there in that game. Not the case. And it's going to be interesting to see what both of these teams do in the offseason. I mean, Auburn's already committed to a coaching change, and I'm sure we'll talk more about Jimbo Fisher in the coming weeks.
Or in the coming but we'll definitely see about that. So now with week 11 being behind us, so let's see how we did in the picks.
7-4.
We all went 7-4. Look
going
at that.
to a bowl game.
All right, we're all going to a bowl game. We're probably going to go end up in the Belk Bowl, but at least we're going bowling. So 7-4 for all of us, first place. So we're all sharing the podium and the gold medal for this week in week number 11. So with week 11 behind us, let's turn our attention here to week number 12, as games will kick off on Saturday. And our week 12 games and pickup is presented by our fellows at Fanatics. You can use our link down there, fanatics.936.net/sports scramble. And today's code is ROAST. You can save up to 65% off site wide. And I'm sure for next week's show, whenever Black Friday is coming around, they'll have all the deals as well. You can start Christmas shopping for your loved ones. So definitely head on over to Fanatics. Use our link and start supporting your champions, because we got some conference champions already being unlocked. So, get your division champ merch, or if you want to wait for the whole shebang, you can wait till your team hoists the championship trophy. So, let's go on now to our Week 12 games in SEC. Like Wade mentioned, a lot of cupcakes, but you know what? We still pick them. So, Austin P at number 8, Alabama. Do you see anything surprising happen in this one?
I don't. I wish I did because Austin P has a wonderful logo, but I'm not crazy. So I'm going to join y'all
All right.
picking Alabama.
Yeah, simple as is. So all Alabama, and this one we're spending more time on. We have some ETSU ties between our co-hosts and some of our viewers as well. East Tennessee State, not so good of a season as it was last year. They only have 3 wins on the season, a rough year for the Bucks, and they travel to the Cowbells. Mississippi State will be looking to bounce back. So, are you going to roll with your family ties, or going to go against them and go with the Bulldogs?
Well, you see, my family's very competitive and we like to win. Uh, so they know this is not a slight to ETSU and Elizabeth in her senior year. I'll have to talk to her and see if she's making any last second plans to go to this game. Actually, that's not true. I know she's going to be in Asheville. So she'll be watching from afar as well. My parents will actually be here this weekend, so we might catch this game while we're out and about. But yeah, I mean, for ETSU, just not the season that they wanted to have after sharing the SoCon title last year and making the FCS playoffs. So not going to happen this year for them. They did have to usher in a new coach. So give them a little bit of time to get things going. You got to think what Tennessee's doing will be really good for that state and the recruiting in that state as well. So maybe that'll trickle down to ETSU as well. But for now, I think Mississippi State gets things done. I mean, they should be able to pass all over the Buccaneers. But hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe ETSU will have some magic.
Yeah, sorry, Hamiltons. I'm gonna pick against ETSU again. I usually like to ride with them, but like you mentioned, they just been having a down year. I mean, going from a really magical season, yeah, like you mentioned, they shared the SoCon. They made a run in the playoffs before they ran into North Dakota State, which is really a dynasty in that FCS division. But I think that Mississippi State at home, I don't think that they're gonna look ahead because they do have the Egg Bowl next week, so we could see this as a potential trap game, but I just feel like the talent gap is going to be too much. I think that Mississippi State will roll in this one against the Bucks, and Chet is also going to go with the Bulldogs as well. So new ETSU love this week in our picks. Well, we still love ETSU as a whole. So maybe, who knows? They'll surprise us.
I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah. I'm sure any of us would hate it. So now we go on to UMass at Texas A&M. Like we mentioned, UMass is 1-9, probably the worst team in all of college football, alongside Colorado. I would probably give it to Colorado at this rate. I would love to see like UMass and Colorado, just let them play to see who's like the worst of them all. But do you have the Aggies picking up their 4th win of the season here?
Yes, I have pity on the Aggies. I mean, they're not that bad, are they? If they lose this
No.
one, I mean,
if they lose this one, Jimbo, you might as well just pack up your bags now and leave.
yeah, I think they get it done, but not a good year for A&M at all.
Yeah, Texas A&M, this is where you get your win here. I think that this is going to be a blowout. I think that UMass is not even going to be able to score that much. I think it's going to be like a 42-3 type of ball game. It's going to be very ugly. Both offenses have had their struggles, but I think that A&M will assert their dominance. Look for A-Chain if he's back. Maybe they rest him one more week and then have him healthy for LSU. Maybe they roll with that, or maybe they just rest him and shut him down at the end of the season. Who knows what the mindset of A&M will be for these last 2 weeks of the season. But for this week, I will pick the Aggies, and so will Chet. No chaos creator, but he's still rolling, no upsets so far, but we'll see if we see one in this Week 12 slate. So finally, we get to an SEC versus SEC game. The conference, not many conference games, as you can tell, but a big one here in the SEC East. For Vanderbilt's side, if they want to get to a bowl game, they have to win this one and beat Tennessee, which if they beat Tennessee, man, that would create some chaos. But Florida at Vanderbilt, who you got?
Well, these are two teams that are trending upward for me, and it was really cool to see Vanderbilt beat Kentucky last week. I'd like them to ride that momentum at home here against Florida. Um, when they had James Franklin as the coach, I think they beat Florida a couple times
Yeah.
on the road. Tough travel, especially this time of the year. It's cold up there. Bunch of Florida boys. But I'm going to go with the Gators because they've really impressed me since the Georgia game. I mean, they kicked a team captain off the team. Had to be done, I guess. The reasons have been kept mostly internal. We don't know for sure. But they really shook that off, and they had a really good effort against Texas A&M. I know we just ragged on A&M, but that was a good road win, and then a really dominant showing against South Carolina. So all of a sudden, Florida's trending up, and they should jump teams like South Carolina, and maybe even Kentucky in terms of bowl hierarchy.
I really thought about going with Vanderbilt, but in the end, I'm going to be smart here. I'm going to go Florida. I think Vanderbilt, that definitely was a nice win against Kentucky, but the problem with I know that Kentucky beat Florida, but Florida now after that Georgia game, like you mentioned, I think that their offense has got to go on. Their defense, if they can really do what they did last week against South Carolina, they're going to need to do it because Ray Davis, if he can get going, then Vanderbilt can really spread it out through the air and then also on the ground. But I think that Vanderbilt's defense is really still my concern. I think that it's going to be a close game. This is always is. And, Florida, whenever they were good, Vanderbilt played them close. So I would not be shocked if this one's like a 20-24 game. But in the end, I'll go with the road team and the Gators. I'm sure the Gator fans will take over Nashville. It's pretty easy to do in that stadium. But let's see where Chet's going to lean, and he's going to
I
go.
thought he might pull the trigger.
Yeah, he's gonna go the Gators, so no upsets from him. Been lacking of upsets, so I might have to take away the upset special if I don't see more
He's
of
lost his
that in the
title.
next coming weeks, especially next week during rivalry week. That's whenever he
It's
likes
kind of hard to
to.
pull the trigger on him here, though. Like
Yeah,
not too many compelling upsets.
so let's go on. We have another conference game here in the SEC East. Number one Georgia, Kentucky in the preseason. This would have been a top 10 matchup, but now Kentucky's fallen off in the last couple of weeks. So you're gonna go with the dogs, or gonna go with the surprising Cats to pull off an upset?
Well, I was on Big Blue Nation for most of the season, and I was really looking forward to this road matchup. I mean, I thought Georgia having to go on the road to Mississippi State followed immediately by Kentucky. I thought Kentucky was primed to pull off the upset here, uh, but I can't do it after they just lost to Vanderbilt. I mean, I think Kentucky will kind of be like Mississippi State, maybe give it a fight for a quarter, but then I see Georgia just taking over, probably winning this one like 45-20.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. I mean, I thought about, pulling the upset more on Mississippi State, but, the way that Georgia's been rolling, I just couldn't do it. I can't do it here as well. I think that Georgia is just going to, I think I wouldn't be shocked if Kentucky keeps it close for like a quarter, maybe going into the half. But in the end, Georgia's going to flex their muscle once again. They'll probably win this one like 42-13, something like that. Just Kentucky, if they can't get Chris Rodriguez going, then I don't really trust, the way that Will Levis has been playing more recently. We'll see if that changes. But in the end, I'm going to go with the dogs. And Chet is also going to go with Georgia as well. So, well, clean sweep. No really disagreement so far. But we will see if we get one in this next game. Well, this is not a conference game, as this will go to the Plains of Western Kentucky at Auburn. And to be honest with you, I feel like Western Kentucky is the better team here. I mean, they're 7-4. They're still in the thick of things in the Conference USA. It's them and UTSA. It's probably going to be the Conference USA matchup of the Hilltoppers. And they go on the Plains to Auburn. Auburn coming off that big win at home against Texas A&M. And if they want to get a bowl eligible, they have to win this game. So do you have Auburn getting that 6th win, or do you have Western Kentucky pulling off the upset? I know wouldn't really be an upset. Auburn's only a 6-point favorite, so maybe Vegas is telling you something.
Hey, you know what's better than a plane?
What?
A hilltopper.
A hilltopper.
And yeah, I mean, actually, I really would have loved to take in Western Kentucky's quarterback Reed in SEC fantasy if we were allowed to take an out-of-conference foe, because he has been really dynamic in this offense. We saw many quarterbacks come out of this offense and do quite well. Patriots quarterback is from Western Kentucky as well. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Bailey Zappi.
There you go. So yeah, he beat Joe Burrow's record out of this system. So you know that Western Kentucky can sling it and they can put up some points. And I think this one's just as simple as I don't think Auburn can outscore Western Kentucky, and I don't think their defense is really all that impressive. So if Western Kentucky gets into 30s in this one, to me, it's all over.
Yeah, I mean, Western Kentucky, I know they're a group, but I feel like they're just dishing out quarterbacks left and right. I feel like every quarterback you feel like, especially including Bailey Zappi, what a tremendous college career, like you mentioned. You definitely bring up a good point. Western Kentucky has, one of the explosive offenses in the Conference USA. Auburn, has been a little dicey, especially in the quarterback play. I know that Tank Bigsby has been running the show. I think that he'll be able to do that. This could be, more of a high scoring game. I think that's going to play right into Western Kentucky. I wish I was the only one, but I'm also going with the Hilltoppers as well.
Swing the red rag with me.
Yep, here we go. So we're going to roll the Hilltoppers, and Chet is going to go with the basics here. Roll the SEC team, go with Auburn at home. So this could be a game that we look at going to next week. Are we going to gain a game here on Chet, or are we going to lose a game on him? So we will definitely see about that. So we will move on. We have a lot of games here in week number 12. No more bye weeks left for all these teams. So we have number 5, Tennessee, go on the road to Columbia. South Carolina, it is a night game, so that adds to environment for them. But do you have South Carolina pulling off the upset here? Or do you have just Tennessee rolling?
Well, South Carolina, they just aren't trending in the right direction. Had they taken care of business the last couple of weeks, I think this would set up an intriguing upset appeal with Tennessee, not necessarily looking ahead to Vanderbilt, but more so looking ahead to their postseason positioning. But now that Tennessee's lost, they really just have to impress and score as many points as possible. And I think they can do that on the road against South Carolina. I don't think it'll be particularly close. I'll say South Carolina shows some life, but I think it's going to be like 40. No, I'll go 45-20 again.
I think I gave away my pick for my quarterback of SEC fantasy, Hendon Hooker. So you can just put up the power T on mine. I mean, I was on the South Carolina train. I was starting to believe in them, and then they lose back-to-back weeks. I was like, okay, this is just the same South Carolina team I know for a couple of years. So I just don't think that Carolina has the offense to keep up with Tennessee. I mean, no one has been able to see unless your name is Georgia. So I think that Tennessee wins this one pretty convincingly. I wouldn't be shocked if Carolina can put up some points too. I will go 48-21. I think that Tennessee – I mean, like you mentioned, they have to really blow out teams left and right if they want to get in. So I think Tennessee does just that and really flex their muscle against Gamecock. So Chet is also going to go with Tennessee as well. So he's just sticking with the favorites this week.
Mr.
Week
Steady.
12. Let's see if that continues. So we have another conference game. Let's go on now to the SEC West. And this game is always crazy. I mean, it was like the 5-year anniversary of the 4th and 25 play. That was just a wild play.
Oh, that was wild.
Yeah, that was a wild play. So it's always been wild finishes. I feel like this game has been one of the more high-scoring games in series as late. So we have number 14 Ole Miss at Arkansas. Teams looking to bounce back after suffering a loss in Week 11.
Yeah, so in this one, you never really know which way it can go. You expect a lot of offense. This year, you should expect a lot of rushing yards. I mean, we get to see 2 of the premier running backs in the league. Quinshon Judkins has a legitimate chance at 20 rushing touchdowns on the year, which is really good in a 12-game season. And I think that he could add a couple this week. And then on the other side, Raheem Sanders, he's been doing this for a long time. So I think by running the ball, it will kind of keep the score down a little bit because it'll burn some clock. But look for both teams to excel on the ground. It's a toss-up for me, but Ole Miss has shown me more in the season, and Jackson Dart will be playing. If KJ Jefferson was a for sure go, I might consider going with the home team here in Arkansas. But if he doesn't, I didn't see anything I like out of the quarterback position for Arkansas.
Yeah, it's still unknown if KJ Jefferson is going to suit up. He did suit up, last week, but he wasn't involved in the pregame warmup. So it was Malik Hornsby once again. They try to really rely heavily on legs as well than Raheem Sanders. So like you mentioned, I do agree that the running games will be prevalent. Ole Miss the best running game in the SEC. Arkansas is up there as well with Raheem Sanders leading the way. So, I could see, both teams trying to match each other in the time of possession. I could either go one way, this could be a high scoring game or this could be a defensive battle. Both defenses have really picked it up. Arkansas probably played the best game on defense last week against LSU. Ole Miss been up and down, but if you missed last night's show, I did pick Arkansas over Ole Miss as my upset alert pick, so I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go roll with the Hogs here. This series is always wild, always wacky. I think Arkansas gets it done, gets their 6th win to become bowl eligible. So give me the Hogs over an upset. And Chet is going to go with Ole Miss, and I'm going to be the lone hog, and I will definitely take that. I'm all right with it. So
a chance to get some ground.
Absolutely. So come on, Hogs. All right, so let's go on to the next game here. We move outside of our conference games for the last 2-1. We have State at Missouri. Missouri did play the other New Mexico. So let's see if they can go 2-0 against New Mexico's.
That's a scheduling oddity right there to play both New Mexico schools. I looked at New Mexico State's schedule. I forgot that they were an independent. I mean, they've been all over the place. They've played Wisconsin, Missouri.
They've been every state you can think of.
They're playing all over. Feasible chance at an upset here, but I'm going to go with Missouri and Brady Cook. I do not think that Missouri will cover that 28 points. New Mexico State's defense has actually been pretty good. But in their previous Power 5 games against Minnesota and Wisconsin, they have gotten beat by 25 plus. So maybe there's a sign there for Missouri. But as of late, this defense really seems to have locked things down. They actually lost their first 3 or 4 games of the year, and they're on a little bit of a high here. They've won like 3 games in a row.
Well, interesting facts there for the Aggies in Mexico State. The question marks that we had for Missouri, no Connor Bazelak. How's the quarterback play? And Brady Cook has really responded well. He's playing good down the stretch. So I think that Missouri will end the season off very strong here. They got a big win, almost got not really a big win last week. They held it close against one of the best teams in the country. But I think that Missouri will finish off their home slate here very strong. So I'm going to go with MIZ here. And Jet is going to go with the Missouri Tigers as well. And we have one more game. Yes, we pretty much have a Pac-12 after dark slate here. An 8 o'clock kickoff for the Tigers of LSU as they just keep on playing in each time zone. I mean, they had a 2:30, 11 a.m. game, a 6, now an 8. So the last game here in Death Valley for the season, 17 seniors will be honored at this pregame ceremony. So UAB, who sits at 5-5, but still, really good program overall, just having a rough year after their head coach decided to retire. So they are on the road to number 6 LSU. And last time that this happened, Odell returned a 100-yard kickoff return that was blocked. So I don't know if it's going to be that big of a blowout, but the Tigers or the Blazers winning.
I definitely fondly remember that kickoff return, or I guess kick return.
Yeah, he missed it was like it was short, and then Odell really returned it all the way.
Yeah, that was pretty talented. I also remember South Carolina playing UAB a few times. DJ Swearinger, I think, came up with the definition of targeting during a UAB game, absolutely annihilating a crossing route for a UAB receiver. So brings back good memories of college football for me. But yeah, despite the late kickoff and maybe looking ahead to A&M and Atlanta, I do think LSU gets it done behind a strong defensive effort. I wouldn't say LSU's offense will be all that. I don't think they'll show many new plays, and I think they'll just try to get it done with Josh Williams and hopefully keep Jaden Daniels from taking any big hits, because you just don't need it against UAB. But I think LSU will take care of business. I'm going to give them a 31-13 victory.
Yeah, I think that this could be the game where LSU can work out those kinks, that their offense, wasn't really clicking, especially the passing game. So, it'd be good for LSU, to get up big. That way they can rest Jaden Daniels for next week's game against A&M. And then, the weeks ahead that are here for this LSU team. But in the end, at UAB, I wouldn't be shocked if they kept it close for as long as they did. They're a really good program. They have a explosive offense. Their defense has been a little subpar. That's why, they have the 5 losses on the seasons. But in the end, I'm going to go with LSU at home. I think they close out their home slate here with victory on their seniors. They go out on a right way. So give me the Tigers at home. And Chet is also going to go with LSU. So all rolling with the Bayou Bengals against UAB this week. So that does it for our Week 12 games in SEC. And now we move on to our top 4 games outside of the conference, which is presented by our new sponsor, Yeti. I'm sure that a lot of our fans have heard about this. It's definitely popular. And they offer free shipping on orders of $50 or more. You can stock up on your coolers, drinkware. They also have luggage, which I didn't know about, but they have luggage. So if you ever want to go on some trips, definitely order some
Bring that
Yeti
fish
luggage
back
as
from the
well.
Louisiana Gulf.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's durable enough for any adventure that you take, whether that's on the land, the water, wherever you go. So you can use our link there, yetius.pxf.io/scramble. So I'm sure that as well, Yeti will have a lot of their Black Friday deals. So we'll have that for next week's show as well. So let's get into our games outside of the SEC. And once again, we start with the Big 12. And in the TCU Horned Frogs, once again, we'll hit the road, number 4, on the road to Waco against Baylor. So do you have Baylor ending the TCU Cinderella story? You have TCU just, chugging along to the Big 12 championship.
Hey, everybody wants to get TCU to lose. I mean, they keep picking against them, and rightfully so. I mean, they had all those comeback victories, some close calls, but they really showed me a lot against Texas. They didn't have to do it with their offense. They did it with their defense on the road. A real gutsy win. And another road test here against Baylor. It's always the second road game that will get you, so they need to look out. But Baylor looked lifeless on Saturday, so TCU should be just fine, and I think they'll get it done here against one of their Big 12 rivals.
Yeah, I put Baylor to cover against Kansas State on the Sports Scramble special. If you watched that game, you could tell that went. So I'm going to go with TCU. I mean, Baylor, had a lot of preseason expectations. They really fallen flat, ever since. But I'm not picking against TCU anymore. I mean, this is just a team of destiny. It feels like with Max Duggan and then their defense really stepped up against Texas. I mean, Bijan Robinson only had 20 yards rushing. So, I mean, that was just a very good defensive performance. So I think TCU flexes their muscle. I think they get this one 31-17. I think they make a statement that they definitely do belong in that top 4. So Chet is also going to roll with TCU as well. So no one is picking against them. Maybe that will be the telltale sign of a Baylor upset. So we will be watching that game for sure on Sunday afternoon. So now let's go on to the Big Ten game of the week. This would have been a ranked matchup, and you were right about Illinois. They were a bunch of frauds.
I was just 1 week too early on my upset pick, man.
Yes. I mean, it's just been a rough 2 weeks for this Illinois team, and it doesn't get any easier. Number 3, Michigan is waiting. So I'm guessing you're going to go with Michigan the way that you've been talking about this Illinois team.
If you want to look at this like it's a stock, I mean, Illinois, everybody was all in on them, and I started to pick against them, and I was 1 week too early. And Michigan, I've been holding on to them, onto my golden ticket.
Preseason playoff pick.
Yeah, so here they are at number 3. Ohio State, I mean, they look pretty dang good, but Michigan, it'll be interesting. Depending on how they play against Ohio State, they still have a very good chance of making the playoff, even if they lose that game. So we'll probably hit that in hot topics in the coming weeks on which is a better at-large team, the loser of the Big Ten East or the SEC East.
Yeah, we'll definitely. You already stole my hot topic for next week, so we'll definitely be sure to that. But
it's a preview.
Michigan. I think Illinois is a pesky bunch. I know they haven't looked too good, but is Michigan going to look too far ahead? I know they got that big game on the road. They've been circling it, but I think that they showed that this is definitely the number 3 team in the country. I know they struggled against Rutgers, but they were able to blow them out. I think that Michigan will be able to run the ball with Blake Corum, and then Chase Brown on the other side will be able to run the ball as well. But Michigan, too much talent. I'll go like 38-10 in this one. Michigan just too much at home. And Chet is also going to agree with us. He's going to go with the Michigan Wolverines. So no men quite yet. So we'll see if we get any by the end of the show. So we have 2 of the top Pac-12 matchups. I mean, this is a really big week for the Pac-12. The winner of both matchups will probably end up meeting in the Pac-12 championships. Let's go ahead to number 7 USC. At number 16 UCLA, the Battle of Los Angeles. UCLA coming off a disappointing loss at home against Arizona. USC of a blowout win against Colorado, 55-17. So, going to roll the Trojans or going to go with the Bruins?
Ah, man, the LA battle. They play a week early, so this kind of, it's good because we get a rivalry game
They
before
really need to
rivalry week.
move this to SoFi.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, probably would have a better chance at filling it out. I wanted to go UCLA all season on this one. I really did, but how do you lose to Arizona? So gotta go Southern Cal. I wanted to pull the upset, cause chaos in the Pac-12. It's been a pretty good conference this year. I know we give the Pac-12 a lot of crud, but USC right there in playoff contention, arguably will probably be the best one-loss conference champion if they pull through. So still in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, these two Pac-12 games, I'm not going to lie, it was very hard to pick. It was a coin flip. I had the same mindset as you. I wanted to keep picking UCLA, but until they lost to Arizona, I mean, you just can't do that. I think that this is going to be an offensive explosion for both teams, but in the end, I'm going to go with USC. I think that they'll be able to feed their wide receivers, Jordan Addison. Caleb Williams, has played in big games, so he's not – this is like two veteran quarterbacks. DTR has had experience, so – this is going to be like a 41-38 type of game. I feel like both offenses are going to be very explosive. The defenses have been lacking on both sides. But in the end, I got to go with USC. And Chet's going to go the opposite. He's going to go the other LA team, going to go with UCLA. And this could be a game that we look back to see. And this is, I believe, the night game for the Pac-12. But the next game is the real Pac-12 after dark, 9:30 our time. And it is a top 12 matchup. Number 10, Utah, a team that no one really has been talking about. All the hype has been around Oregon, USC. Utah has won out ever since they lost to UCLA. They had their opening loss to Florida. And then number 12, Oregon, they just lost to Washington at home. So both of these teams need a win here to go on to the Pac-12 championship. So is it going to be the Ducks at home, or are you going to go with the Utes pulling off what Washington did?
Always a tough trip up there to Oregon. Oregon let me down in picks last week and lost on the at home against Washington. So it certainly can be done. And honestly, Utah just looks really good right now. And Oregon, just a little too disappointing for me. So I'm going to go with Utah in this one, but it's a toss-up. And does the winner get to play for the Pac-12 championship?
Yeah, it's pretty much a guarantee. I thought that Washington had a chance, but they did lose to UCLA. Both of these teams lost to UCLA, and then also Washington lost to Arizona State. So that loss really hurts the Huskies. So this is the four teams that we've seen in the two slides are pretty much the four teams left.
It's a playoff.
Yeah, it's the Pac-12 playoff pretty much. But yeah, this is a toss-up. I mean, it's not easy to beat Oregon in Autzen Stadium. I think that the play of Bo Nix has been phenomenal. And then two veteran quarterbacks. You have Cam Rising on the other side. But you know me, I talked a lot about Utah in the preseason of how good this team is going to be. So I feel like I got to go back to them.
Yeah, you're going back to the well.
I got to go back to what I was talking about in the preseason. So I think that this is going to be a very good game. I wouldn't be shocked if it goes either way. Same with the USC UCLA game, but in the end, got to go with Utah. And Chet, please save us for going all Utah and
Oregon.
Gosh, this isn't good.
Three road wins. Oh man,
I thought about going with Oregon because I saw YouTube pick Utah, but I don't know. I just couldn't do it.
I should have read Chet's text. But yeah, 3 road wins. But yeah, kudos to both of these teams. Kind of like LSU, they got a week 1 loss, and then they've rallied back to a chance where they have a chance at a conference title and a New Year's Six bowl game. So way to not lose sight of the season.
Absolutely. So this is a big game. I mean, if the Pac-12 isn't left out, we could see one of these 4 teams head off to the Rose Bowl to probably play the loser of the Michigan-Ohio State game. So definitely a lot of at stake here in the last 2 weeks here of the season. So now let's go on to the hot topics. And our first two hot topics are our two teams that officially clinched. The first one, Georgia, clinching the SEC East. Are you really surprised at that?
No, I mean, I think we had Tennessee obviously in contention and Kentucky in contention for a little bit, but as soon as we saw Tennessee lose to Georgia, we knew it was Georgia's for the clinching. I don't think that really anybody's going to beat them until they get in that playoff environment, and even then, they could be the odds-on favorite. So,
Yeah.
just handling their business here is Georgia, and maybe a little bit more surprisingly, the SEC West
Yeah.
has already been decided with 2 weeks of play left, and it's not Alabama clinching it. I mean, kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was picking, even us, honestly. We picked Georgia and Alabama, but LSU, if you look back at the preseason media poll, they were picked not first, not second, not third, not fourth, but fifth in the SEC West. So almost last, six gets you last. So I mean, I feel like, Sonny Dykes is probably going to be the coach of the year national, but if I'm looking at the SEC coach of the year, why can't it be Brian Kelly?
It might be Brian Kelly just off name value. I mean, Sonny Dykes, a lot of credit to him as well. Tremendous job at TCU. And if they make the playoff, all right, I think you got to give it to him.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's going to be some SEC bias in the media's vote, and everybody knows that. And everybody knows Brian Kelly is a really good coach. And this was a high-profile hire, and he's lived up to the expectations. It took a little bit, and it's been unconventional, but he's got them to the glory land.
Yeah. I just want to go back to January. I mean, LSU played a bowl game where 39 scholarship players, and now you ship back to them a few months, and this team is on the way to Atlanta. Who would have thought that? I'm sure not even LSU fans would even describe that. So, yeah, what a terrific coaching hire. I'm sure that all the naysayers about Brian Kelly are not going to say anything in, the culture that he's building down there in Baton Rouge. So the next one, though, is another coaching swirls. We know that Auburn got rid of Brian Harsin. So do we see Texas A&M being the next one, and do they need to make a coaching change in the offseason?
I don't know, but I don't know if they can afford one. I mean, Jimbo Fisher, it's what, like $87 million buyout?
I think actually 95 million.
Oh my gosh. So I know they got a lot of money and resources, but there hasn't really been a mid-major to me with a young coach that stood out. But I know that A&M's probably going to go after a high-profile coach should they make a move. I don't know what they could really do except for maybe get Sonny Dykes to move to his third Texas school in 3 years.
I don't know if he would do that.
I don't know if he would. So, yeah, I'm not sure where this team can go, but they better figure out their direction before Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC, because they could really fall down in terms of recruiting,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of money coming into the conference and other teams have figured out NIL.
Yeah, we're already seeing a fluctuation. These players either transferring out of the program or, decommitting from the program as well. So, I mean, we're seeing the same thing that I saw of Les Miles. I mean, just stubbornness of not wanting to change the offense. He doesn't want to hire an offense coordinator. He wants to be the offense coordinator. We're seeing, what's funny is, you look at Mike Leach, he's just holding like a little note card. Jimbo Fisher, I feel like, has like a dang encyclopedia of play calls, and they're scoring on like 10 points a game. So I feel like something needs to change at Texas A&M. Either you hire offense coordinator or make a change, or you just get rid of the guy if he doesn't want to make a change. It's as simple as that. I mean, A&M, the amount of resources they have, should never, ever miss a bowl game. I mean, it's just ridiculous what's happening at that program. I mean, if they want to be elite, with, the Georgias, Alabamas, they need to start, making some changes, whether, it costs them almost $100 million. You just got to make the change before it gets too late. Like you mentioned, Oklahoma and Texas are coming in here and they're right in your backyard. I mean, players are going to go to Texas before they want to go to A&M.
The part about it to me that is concerning is, you just, like you said, he's just stubborn and you don't see any adaptation. I mean,
right.
The national media was calling for Billy Napier's job 2 weeks ago and saying he wasn't cut up for the SEC. And then what did he do? He made a bold move. He adapted, and he came into Texas A&M and won by 20 points. And now, you haven't heard a negative thing about Florida
Mm.
since. And that was 2 weeks ago. And they're still not that great of a football team, but the program is heading in the right direction. You got to make changes. You got to adapt. You got a lot of talent. You should be able to adapt. I'm
Yeah.
at a blank as who they could hire. So I think they're just going to have to ride it out with Jimbo, but they're going to have a talk with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then my mom brings up unbelievable season for LSU. Yeah, what a season! Even if they lose, in that city championship game, I think they have just surpassed all expectations. I'm sure that all the fans. I mean, even after the Florida State game, I mean, people are saying like, "Oh, we'll be like 7-5, 8-4," and now could be a possibility of a 10-2 season. So the last hot topic, like we usually do, I mean, on Tuesdays whenever we go live, we already had the college football playoff top 25. But since we don't, let's do some projections for tomorrow night's show. So, how do we see the top six shaking out tomorrow night?
I got to say, Georgia's number 1, Ohio State at number 2. I don't think anybody did anything enough to jump Michigan at number 3. You could argue that TCU's road win could leapfrog Michigan, but the way that they've treated TCU so far, I think they'll just stay at number 4. At number 5, well, Oregon has lost, so they're out of contention there. And Clemson still kind of coming back from a loss. So I think Tennessee slots in nicely there. And then at number 6, I think you could go a variety of ways. I don't know. I'm curious. Who do you have at number 6?
All right. Well, I guess I'll just go through my 1 through 6. So, number 1 is pretty much easy. I think this is going to be a given. Number 1 is going to be Georgia. Number 2 is going to be Ohio State. Really, I don't see the top 4 change. 3 will be Michigan. 4 will be TCU. To be honest with you, I mean, the playoff committee the first week, I was like, okay, well, they disrespect TCU. Now they put all, TCU to number 4. So maybe they do respect them. So I'll be interested to see, is, the win at Texas going to be enough? I don't think so. I know that they won, but if you're going to jump leapfrog a team like Michigan, you got to beat them pretty convincingly. So I think that TCU will stay at 4. Tennessee is going to stay at 5. That's pretty simple for me. I mean, putting up 66 points against the SEC team. And then I think number 6 will probably come down between 2 teams, USC and LSU. In the end, I got to give it to LSU. I feel like their resume is overall better than USC. I mean, USC, I know that they beat Colorado, but Colorado is the worst team in college football. And they have struggled pretty much in every game that they have played, even when they face like Oregon State, teams like that. But I think even with LSU struggling, they even move Ohio State, when they beat Northwestern last week by 14. So I think that with Oregon losing, that opens up the door for LSU moving up a spot. I mean, as long as you won the game, you'll move up.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement for sure. I was going to say maybe USC slots in at 6, but they might need another big win against
Yeah.
UCLA to do that.
If they're going to slide up, it would probably be if they beat UCLA, I could potentially see the move then.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. They'll have to beat the brakes off UCLA.
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to move LSU up after a marginal victory.
I'm looking at resumes here, and LSU has, more top 25 matchups. I know that USC's lone loss is on the road to Utah. That's looking really good. It's only 1-point loss. Utah decided to go for 2 there. But yeah, everything will play itself out. But
yeah, that's the beauty of it. It'll play out.
Yeah. We can talk all the debates we want. We'll probably have more on it next week once we get into rivalry week. But that'll be it for week 12 here of SEC Talk. Hope everyone enjoyed tonight's version of it. So next week we will dive and recap into week 12. And then the final week of the regular season is upon us. We'll dive into some rivalry week. We'll have, some special graphics. We always love to put in some special graphics during rivalry giving week as well. So tune in Sunday nights for Sports Scramble. We had Monday afternoon earlier today at 3 o'clock. We had our Coast to Coast show. And Tuesday nights for SEC Talk. It should resume next week, Thanksgiving week. And then we'll be off for Thanksgiving week so you can spend time with your family and friends. So for SEC Talk for week number 12, that'll be it. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of your week. And we will see you back here time on SEC Talk. Have a good one.